Hi, everyone. I'm Dave.
And I'm Jeremy.
Welcome to our Tech Over Coffee podcast. We're so excited to be filming from the beautiful studio here at our main campus in Marianna, Florida. Chipola College provides so many opportunities for those that love technology, love business concepts. You can work on industry certifications. You can participate in our gaming community with a Discord channel. You can do research on crypto, some really fun stuff. We get to share some of these things with you in our podcast. So I know Jeremy has some neat topics to get us started.
Yeah.
So Jeremy, let's kick it off.
With our little bit of a hiatus, that nobody ever notices.
Does that mean we've been filming every day, or what?
Yes, that means that we've been filming extra amounts that we just keep for ourselves.
Okay.
Because it's our nice personal podcast
Nice.
time.
I always wondered what that is. That Latin?
It's our practice.
That's our practice.
It's
okay.
how we're so good,
Okay, good.
for this one.
Nice.
So we have a lot of news this week, actually, and a lot of interesting news. So over the weekend, I think I'm just going to, do it on the fly. Over the weekend, did you catch the SNL?
I did not.
Elon Musk?
I got to watch the highlight of that. I was discouraged reading some headlines about it, is that those that were actually going to join with the effort were thinking, I'm not going to be with Elon. And I started
Yeah.
thinking, why? What's Elon have to do? Who's anti-Elon?
Yeah.
And maybe that impacted his crypto announcement afterwards. Who knows? But I won't steal any thunder.
Yeah, it's kind of sad news to come out after that, right? But I only saw some of the SNL stuff because got to be prepared for this, right?
Is it worth a watch?
Some of it isn't.
He's kind of like stiff, or
I'm not so sure about the some of their skit ideas. Millennial Hospital, not so great. But you'll see if you ever catch that. It's kind of just making fun of millennials. But otherwise, hey, it's Elon Musk on SNL. That's kind of interesting. It's a big move for having big time rich CEOs showing up on something like that. You wouldn't have that if it was the CEO of Ford or Walmart, right? Do you see the guy from Walmart coming out and making jokes?
Now, Elon cuts across all that. So that's a neat
Yeah.
positive step to have a business leader kind of kicking it off. It doesn't have any acting ability. And he's
Yeah.
kind of out there in the media, so people know. They recognize him, at least by name.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got his own kind of brand of comedy, and I think that's okay.
The dry humor.
Yeah, some funny
Very
stuff.
pointed humor.
Yeah, it is, and he's got some specific things that he definitely finds funny. He likes Doge. He likes making 420 jokes. Totally likes specific numbers that I might not mention today.
So the jokes, do you think his thought on pushing against Bitcoin now, is that a joke, or is he serious?
I don't know.
I didn't
because
think it would be a joke, but until we were talking about a sense of humor.
So I think they're actually serious about pulling back on Bitcoin, and I think maybe just to do more research, because so after all of this then, so we talked about a while back, Tesla adding the ability to pay with Bitcoin for their cars.
Which is so cool.
Super cool. They've since pulled that back. At first, I think that was just for buying cars, okay, you can't use it to buy cars for now. I don't know if they're having payment processor issues. I don't know who they're using for it, right? But what Elon is claiming is that it's because of environmental concerns. It's power usage, really.
Right, and that a lot of, many of the sources for this consumption are coal-based and aren't environmentally friendly. You could tag that to anything, really, in life if you really thought about it. So you're saying that could be an excuse of just covering over some tech glitches. It seems that was a very bold step.
Yeah, it's something that kind of hurts the crypto market, but
I haven't checked. Is it down since you said that?
it's fallen 10-15%, but that's standard, normal
That's
stuff.
a lot, though.
It is a lot. Definitely it's a lot, especially when it's up at $50,000+.
Yes.
That's $5,000, $7,000 of loss.
Yeah.
But that's not unexpected in a volatile market like cryptocurrencies, especially when you have big movers that have pushed it up, like Tesla, Elon Musk, and then to come out and say, well, now we're not going to accept it because we're worried about these things. And I think maybe that's trying to make some influence, trying to push Bitcoin to be more environmentally friendly. The problem with that, though, is that there is no central authority on this, right? It's whoever decides to hook up with whatever they've got. If you've got literally burning crude oil in the backyard to run your miners, there's nothing anybody can do to stop you except for your governments. So with the concerns, right? A lot of this comes from China because in the United States, in Canada, places like Iceland, they do a lot of geothermal power, they do solar power, hydropower for a lot of their power production for crypto mining in particular because you want the cheapest power possible. And in some places, the cheapest power possible is coal. And a lot of those places are China. But China's actually been cracking down on that. So I think they're trying to make this better and trying to move that change forward. But I don't know if it's a total understanding of the situation or what, but it's complex. And it's a lot more than just, it's a whole bunch of electricity being used for something that's not very useful. It's a look at how our power generation is in the world at large. And I think maybe they were concerned and getting pushback from people saying, hey, you're trying to be a green company, you're trying to, improve the environment and try to help the world.
Improve the world, yeah.
Right. Are you really wanting to your cars don't even use fossil fuels. You're trying to make solar panels and solar power and all of this stuff. But you're using something that's burning coal for its power generation. And that's kind of tough. And that's just an issue at large. I don't know what you can really do about it other than move the world as a whole to better power generations and maybe regulations on miners, right? Some countries are looking at that. China's saying that you can't just be in these cheapest regions using
Hydro.
you only using burn some terrible fuels and just throw the dirtiest coal you can because it's literally cheap. Go do hydropower, go
Right.
do solar panels because
Right.
that's better.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's better for everybody involved too, because it's hard to compete in that marketplace when you're dealing with people, burning coal at 1 cent per kilowatt hour because they don't care.
Right, and not to get on it now, but you have experience. You've actually
Yeah.
facilitated a mining shop, so you
Yeah.
speak from knowing firsthand.
I've been in there and I've done that, and you have to look at the breakdown of what your electricity is, right? Because in any particular region, and it's the argument with electric cars too, is that well, what is your power coming from? And that determines how good for the environment your electric vehicle is. And so when you're talking about an electric currency like Bitcoin, it's kind of the same thing.
So Elon also came out against Doge recently, right? He was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's just
Yeah.
hype."
So that's
How can you say
that was
I
part
love
of-
you and I don't love you?
Yeah, that was part of his SNL thing. I mean, Doge is kind of a joke.
So that whole
so-
tagline came out of the SNL, or
I-
did he say it again
I
afterwards?
think I don't know if it was after SNL or on SNL where he kind of called Doge a hustle.
Wow. So if it
Yeah.
was on SNL, then it's meaningless.
But if he sent it out as a tweet afterwards,
Yes.
saying
Okay.
this is just what it is.
Okay.
But that still is what Doge is, right? I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's what can you do when you have something like that has risen so high so quickly, all on hype. It's all people being really excited, and Dogecoin jumping from 0.6 of a penny to 60 cents or above, and I don't know where it is now, but you've had a lot of people involved, and I don't know.
Well,
Right?
interesting topic. So
Yeah.
Elon, we always talk about Elon.
Yeah.
He's out there in the media. Any
We-
nice Elon segue?
We've got some adjacent topics.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so
Hiatus and adjacent.
yeah,
Weird.
good.
Bring out
words,
those
right?
collegial words.
Yeah, they're big words that I learned in the school place that I'm at. So we've got Google teaming up with SpaceX. So,
Nice.
which is Elon Musk and Tesla adjacent.
And we talked about that these industries are becoming so competitive that even though each of them is trying to do everything,
Yeah.
that at some point you have to just join. And this might be an example of just joining.
Right, and it's in this instance, SpaceX, Starlink, they're trying to really get this infrastructure going. Obviously, they're going to need compute power. What's one of the biggest names in compute? It's Google. So
They're synonymous, right?
Yeah, Google Cloud Services.
Yes.
So they're going to be obtaining infrastructure from Google of either hardware or renting infrastructure. Or I mean, that's something that they do actually on demand, which is actually very interesting. And some of the features that they give that others don't is that if you only need a little bit of compute power, that's all you get. If you need more at any specific moment, it'll just give it to you and then just charge you a little bit more. So it's like it's on demand, and they have basically unlimited supply.
That's
And
how their
something
marketing,
unique.
their AdSense operates as well. So
Right.
that's an interesting model. Do you think that is an approach that kind of is a play against Amazon? I mean, Amazon's already picking their
I mean,
partners,
it kind
and,
of has to be, right?
and SpaceX is like, okay, well, let's
Yeah.
pick our partner as well.
Well, you got to think, right? So Amazon being connected to a competing satellite internet service, I don't see SpaceX, Starlink, who's running their internet service, going to Amazon to get some hardware and compute resource. So of course they have to go to someone else, and who else would they go to? But unless they're going to make something on their own, but that's much too large, and Google's got this infrastructure down. So it's a pretty cool partnership.
It is. I guess it could have gone to Microsoft.
Yeah, I guess Microsoft would have been an option too, right? But
IBM.
I think it was something that was put up to a bid, I believe, because I don't think it was
Oh.
just like chosen. I think it was actually that Google won the bid
Wow.
for doing it. So it's like, and that's a good way to make choices.
That's the
on-
only way to do it, right?
Really, it
Especially if
is.
you have a government entity.
Yeah, and that is something too. Is that I think they have government contracts. They have rules and regulations. That
They're a
they follow in
NASA
this.
partner.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And it isn't something where they can just willy-nilly, like, I choose you, you're going to work with me now. No, they like put it up and say, who's going to, accept the lowest cost? And Google's like, us. Pay us the least and we'll do it for you.
Well, yeah, and there's probably a win for them as well.
Oh,
They
yeah.
already had infrastructure.
It's big money.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's huge money. Even if they're the lowest bidder, it's still big money.
It's a natural step for them. They already have everything in place.
Yeah, and it gets them a foot in the door, right? Now they can be making money off of this
Space. Oh,
satellite internet
yes.
infrastructure because they're supplying some of this back end. That means they're involved, even if it's just from a supply standpoint, and that's good. And it's even better for them because then they just make money and not have the other costs.
I was thinking recently about this layer like Starlink of providing, low orbit satellite internet, high-speed internet that helps the Earth, but
Yeah.
that's really going to be the feeder for internet access in space.
To space, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be no.
You have these,
can't
like,
run a
nodes.
cable.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
mean-
coaxial cable to Mars.
No, that would be really hard to run a fiber line all the way from, say, Fremont, California to space Mars or whatever, right? So yeah, you got to kind of think of like the way they're doing it is they're building out just like Wi-Fi nodes. You have your Earth-based internet, which is it's just all one big connection. And then it's connecting to these satellites, and it's really cool that the satellites will soon be like communicating to each other with laser links, right? So you can have internet here, connect to that satellite very quickly, laser link speed of light to another, and then beam it down to another point on Earth or to another satellite somewhere else out in space.
So, just a recent thought, that's going to be the bigger play. They're going to be the only game in town.
Yeah.
Will be them and Amazon, whoever has the internet through the
Yeah.
low Earth orbit satellites out there for high speed internet. But would you do the same thing around the moon? And imagine having that around
Yeah.
Mars someday. That just is
just-
exciting about how we're going to take
You
over the
create
solar
this
system.
multi-layer, and you can actually like just drop satellites along spots in space and just have connection points and relays between them.
Make this big, wide area network, this big
Yes,
WAN,
across our entire solar system.
That's exciting.
The solar area network.
solar WAN.
Yes, it'd be really cool, actually.
I wonder if that term has ever been created before. Maybe we just.
We did it, and we should get credit for that.
Yeah, we need to protect that.
We need
Solar
to-
WAN,
Yeah, but the thing is, then they'll just use something else and avoid us entirely.
something cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, that is really cool.
It
It is
is.
the coolest, and they'll have to use the second coolest
That's
because
true.
that's ours. You can't have it. So, next up, we've got some cool, really cool computer tech infrastructure stuff. IBM making waves out there with 2 nanometer transistors, which is very, very big. Like, very, very small, actually, but very big from like a tech perspective.
Right. Wow. So interesting plays with IBM. When we were looking at these notes together, I was thinking we're not heading down this path, but IBM is owned by a Hong Kong, I think, parent now from years ago. I'll have to research that, but decades ago. I mean, it seems recent, but I think it's definitely a couple decades ago. and which is really makes it a Chinese company. So even though something
They
to
have
research,
American roots.
oh, totally, it's Big Blue, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think it has an international ownership now for
Yeah.
a good 10 years plus. So, not that that's where we're headed, but it's interesting where you have these advancements in companies that are owned outside the U.S. So
Yeah.
we really, this global marketplace becomes competitive and it cuts across many angles.
Right.
So I always think about that with IBM, that it's not the traditional U.S. company
Yeah.
anymore. So it's been a kind of a lag with this nanotechnology. It's been quiet
Yes.
for a while, and now this is just
Well,
right
we're
happening
finally
right now.
finally making that jump, and it's getting closer and closer to the point where it's almost impossible to go past that. I mean, you're at 2 nanometers. That's like smaller than the width of a human hair by a large margin. Previously, I think we've had, I think 5 nanometer has been the smallest we've gotten to recently, and that's not even in active production on like chips. But this 2 nanometers is like you're really getting down there, and they had to, I think, do it in a way that's different, and it's the way they were able to accomplish it is actually make the transistors like a different shape than standard. To accommodate for that like smaller size, and you actually get to the point when you get that small that the electrons have problems like going around, and that's when you get into these like quantum tunneling
Right. So
problems.
this
and
is
stuff.
not utilizing any quantum
It's-
breakthroughs yet.
No, it's not being used yet, but they have like developed it, and so that means it's like another one of those steps along the road.
Exciting.
Yeah, and it's big steps too, because that's the only way you actually progress is like, well, okay, cool, new smaller transistor, that means we can, make these many more movements in the same amount of space, or make something larger that is even more powerful. So it's the way you really get going.
What would you see after this? Do you think quantum is the only next step, or do you see
Well, I don't know if you can get, I mean, you
you can't
can't
get any smaller?
You can't get sub-nanometer. Yeah, I mean, you don't get negative. I guess it's like you have to like come up with another number that's like 0.1, like what's half
Okay.
nanometer or something like that. I don't know. At some point you get to just atom level or whatever, right? So yeah, you start dealing with quantum stuff,
Exciting.
which is insane and might just break everything that we know and understand. From what I understand with quantum tech, though, is that it's like, it won't really break everything. I mean, it kind of will if you let it, but it functions on a different
It has a kind of a
standard.
chaos routine to it almost,
Yeah,
right?
the problem now is that like they're they're just so expensive to make, and
So you think they've mastered how to harness it? It's just
they
the
well,
cost.
Google has like multiple qubit quantum computers. That's like how you measure their speed or whatever. But the issue with getting faster and faster quantum computers is that they have to be like kept extremely cold because of the amount of heat they produce. Like the more heat they have, the less reliable their results are or something. And you have to have good results. So they're like keeping them at multiple negative thousands of temperatures.
Ooh,
And it's crazy stuff that of course I don't understand.
So a couple of thoughts with that. So it'd be hard to get that out to the masses because we wouldn't have a location to actually cool it ourselves.
Yeah.
When you had your mining facility, that was something that you would talk about is how to keep everything cool. And
Cooling
so
is such a big deal when it comes to
any system like that.
anything like that. Yeah, it's like you have these large databases and these giant computer farms where you've got just massive amounts of power being used, and that immediately translates into heat. And places like Amazon or Google, they use air conditioning for a lot of their places, and it's like we were talking about power problems and like hurting the earth with all of this power consumption. That's a big part is data centers and how much power data centers use, and that's getting these smaller transistors helps with that because the smaller transistors take less power, and you can perform the same functions using less electricity. And overall, that actually reduces the footprint of these data centers.
That's a positive takeaway.
Yeah, it's big moves. It's all it comes in time, but it happens.
So another good point for us is to transition our podcast today.
Yeah, well, maybe not a good one, but a little bit of bad news to finish out.
Okay.
Finish out the podcast.
I'm not a bad news guy, though.
It's bad news, but it's funny news.
Okay,
kind of.
I can be funny.
Or unfortunate for the person that does it, because everybody knows, I've talked about this before, that
Is this when you talk about sleeping in your Tesla?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
You don't get in the back seat and just like drive on the freeway.
But isn't that how you sleep in yours?
That's how I would sleep if I was parked.
Oh,
somewhere.
parked. Oh,
Yes.
you mean the car's moving?
There are
Wow.
no self-driving cars. Okay, there are no self-driving cars. But there's a guy in California that just decided that there totally is, and I'm just getting in the back seat now. Like, yeah. So there was a dude that was arrested in California for jumping in the back seat of his full self-driving Tesla, 80 miles down like the California highway. Ooh. And he just like had his foot on the steering wheel to wiggle it every now and then to
Because
like.
it wants you to show you're alive.
Part of Tesla's
Yeah.
driver monitoring
Right.
is wiggle the steering
Yeah.
wheels to show that you're here. And so he got arrested.
There was no
went
accident,
through-
fortunately.
No accident, luckily. But I mean, it could have easily happened,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And I can't even imagine.
Right.
I'd be way too afraid. And this guy apparently doesn't care at all. He gets out, like pays his bail or whatever, and then like tweets, getting in the back seat again.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, so just a fair warning to everyone out there that might be thinking about getting a Tesla or any of these other cars with self-driving or assisted driving features, as which they really are. Don't get in the back seat and let the car drive for you. It doesn't work that way. You'll go to jail.
That's great, Jeremy.
Yeah.
So I think we're setting the tone for our next podcast. So this hiatus served us well.
Yes.
Some rich content. So until next time.
Always good news.
Yeah, this was good stuff.